Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are jumping straight into some absolute breaking regulatory news that literally just upended the entire world of longevity, biohacking, and regenerative medicine. For years, this community has been locked in a massive tug of war with regulators over a specific class of compounds known as peptides. And just when it seemed like the door was permanently slammed shut on some of the most popular recovery tools out there, the government made a huge pivot.
So let's get right into exactly what happened. On April 15, 2026, the FDA updated its 503A bulk drug substances list and suddenly announced the removal of over a dozen popular peptides from their highly restricted Category 2 list. Now, if you're not familiar, Category 2 is basically the FDA's no-go list, substances with significant safety concerns that absolutely cannot be legally compounded. By yanking these peptides off that restricted list, the FDA is essentially opening the door for legal pharmaceutical-grade compounding to potentially make a comeback.
But we really need to pay attention to the ticking clock established here. If you look at the dates on the right, you'll see that these major hitters, compounds like BPC-157, TB-500, KPV, they aren't instantly getting a blanket FDA approval. No, instead, they're headed for a very critical showdown in late July 2026, before the Pharmacy Compounding Advisory Committee, or the PCAC. This is the committee that will review all the evidence and formally recommend whether these peptides should be permanently allowed for compounding. It is a massive shift from those absolute bans we saw back in 2023.
Now, to really understand why this regulatory shift is such a big deal, we have to talk about the most hyped compound of the bunch, BPC-157. You've probably seen it dubbed the Wolverine peptide online. It's actually a synthetic sequence of 15 amino acids that was originally discovered in human stomach acid, which, think about it, is fascinating. The initial thought was, hey, if this protein fragment can protect our gut from highly corrosive stomach acid, what could it do for other injured tissues in the body? The theory was that it could act like a master switch for tissue regeneration.
And honestly, the preclinical animal data behind this is frankly mind-blowing. Over the last 3 decades, researchers have published over 100 animal studies. We are talking about rats with completely severed Achilles tendons healing at hyper-accelerated rates, torn quadricep muscles mending, ligament tears, and even pieces of removed bone showing incredibly rapid repair. It essentially acts like a 4-star general just screaming at the body's repair crew to mobilize, while simultaneously acting as a strong anti-inflammatory to dial back all that aggressive swelling.
But here is where we hit a massive evidence divide. Despite all the internet hype and despite all the athletes swearing by it, there are exactly 3 published human pilot studies in existence as of early 2026. 3. A huge systematic review looking for orthopedic applications of BPC-157 screened over 540 articles, and practically all of them were just on rats and mice.
And let's look closer at what those 3 human studies actually entail. Across those isolated pilot studies, 1 for knee pain, 1 for interstitial cystitis in the bladder, and 1 basic IV safety check, there have been fewer than 30 total human subjects evaluated. Think about that for a second. We have a compound used by thousands of people globally, and the published human evidence base is less than 3 dozen people. Which brings us to the most staggering number of all. 0. There are absolutely 0 randomized placebo-controlled human trials proving BPC-157 works the way people claim it does. The absolute gold standard of modern medicine just doesn't exist for it yet. And while early clinical studies did show positive signals with no short-term adverse effects, without a control group we simply cannot rule out the incredibly powerful placebo effect.
The crazy thing is, we were actually supposed to get that rigorous safety data. Back in 2015, a Phase 1 trial was launched with 42 healthy volunteers to establish safe human dosages and figure out how our bodies actually metabolize this peptide. But then, in 2016, the study was mysteriously canceled. The data simply vanished. No public explanation was ever given. And because of that missing data, researchers and physicians today are basically left guessing on human dosages, just extrapolating wildly from rat studies.
So, this lack of foundational safety data brings us to kind of a terrifying paradox regarding how BPC-157 actually works. Its incredible healing power is driven by a biological process called angiogenesis. Put simply, this is the body's way of building brand new blood vessels. And you need that, right? When you have a torn tendon that lacks blood flow, you absolutely have to create new supply lines to deliver repair cells to the injury. But this brilliantly illustrates a major double-edged sword. On one hand, you have the ultimate healer, creating those vital supply lines to fix your torn knee. But on the other hand, you have a serious potential threat. BPC-157 powerfully upregulates growth factors like VEGF. And because tumors are greedy, they use that exact same process, angiogenesis, to hijack blood supplies so they can grow.
The exact mechanism that rapidly heals a torn tendon could theoretically feed a tiny, undiscovered tumor hiding somewhere in your body. Without long-term human trials, we just don't know if this peptide acts as a firefighter or a fire starter.
And, the safety concerns go way beyond biology, directly into manufacturing. Because of the FDA's 2023 ban that placed BPC 157 in Category 2, legal compounding pharmacies had to completely stop making it. This pushed users straight into an unregulated Wild West gray market. People started buying research chemicals online from labs with zero FDA oversight. These labs frequently fail to remove something called LPS, or lipopolysaccharide. That's an endotoxin left over from the manufacturing process that can cause severe inflammatory reactions. Independent testing has actually shown that up to 58% of similar unregulated products are contaminated, mislabeled, or incorrectly dosed. It's a massive risk.
Which really brings us back to the regulatory roadmap and the absolute whiplash patients and researchers have experienced over the last decade. From the canceled trial in 2015 to the World Anti-Doping Agency ban in 2022 to the FDA compounding ban in 2023. And now, in April 2026, the FDA is walking back the Category 2 designation, leading us directly to the ultimate showdown this coming July. This isn't just bureaucratic red tape. This decision literally determines whether patients will get access to clean, safe, pharmacy-grade peptides or if they'll be forced to keep playing Russian roulette with random internet vendors.
So, what should you actually take away from this? And what happens next? Well, for researchers, physicians, and patients, the time between this April announcement and the July PCAC hearings is an absolutely critical window. The FDA accepts public comments before these hearings. This is the time for the medical community to gather their anecdotal data, submit clinical use cases to the FDA docket, and really advocate for safe, regulated compounding access. If you're a patient, you need to be consulting your prescribing physician right now to figure out how to safely navigate this shifting landscape.
We are standing at a massive crossroads in regenerative medicine right now. The FDA's 2026 reclassification clearly acknowledges that there is something worth investigating here. But that stark lack of human data remains a glaring blind spot. Until the FDA makes its final ruling in July, and until proper large-scale human trials are finally completed, we're left to ask, is this the ultimate Wolverine healer or a massive risk disguised as a miracle? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep your eyes locked on July 2026, and I will see you next time.